Now at 10, NTSB investigators are looking into why a private plane that flew over Washington, D.C. crashed into the mountains of Virginia in Augusta County specifically. The small 3-passenger flight took off from a small Tennessee airport headed to a small Long Island airport. It made it, but officials believe something went wrong along the way as it made a U-turn thousands of feet above the airport and headed back south.
At some point in the flight, which of course will be subject to our lengthy investigation, the flight and the pilot did become unresponsive to air traffic control.
F-16 fighter jets raced to intercept the aircraft as it flew into the restricted airspace over D.C. One of the pilots of those military jets says the Cessna pilot was slumped over the controls in the cockpit, adding that they spent more than half an hour unsuccessfully trying to get his attention. Officials say the plane then crashed in Augusta County, leaving no survivors. Now, as officials work to figure out how something like this happened, we've been digging deeper ourselves. WFXR's Kelsey Jean-Baptiste spoke with an aviation expert on various details of this crash and his opinion on what could have happened.
Federal investigators are tasked with something a lot of us would call difficult when it comes to finding a cause of the crash. Some aviation experts assume the lack of oxygen played a role.
When you're in a jet of any type, you've got cabin pressurization.
What CFO and head of flight school at Heart of Virginia Aviation, Philip Solomon, is talking about is the system making thin air at high altitudes breathable inside of the plane.
What can happen on rare occasions is that pressurization might fail or somehow got hit by something that put a hole in the plane. It would cause a forced and very fast depressurization.
If something like this were to happen, he says people in a plane have about 1 minute to put on an oxygen mask.
In private aviation, you would have 2 oxygen masks, one for the pilot and one for the co-pilot, but typically there would not be any for passengers.
The question of why this plane was in restricted airways continues to remain under investigation, but Solomon explains how fighter jets got involved.
If you do go into an area and you haven't communicated, it will trigger an alert. Worst case, it's a hostile action, and they could potentially shoot the plane down.
Or, in normal scenarios, he says fighter jets would use special protocol to direct the plane out of the restricted airway. But if the pilot is unresponsive again,
the military aircraft will come alongside the other plane and attempt to sort of visually say, excuse me, you need to be doing something here. And in this particular case, my understanding is that they saw somebody slumped over the controls.
NTSB says they won't have the probable cause for a year, maybe 2, but Solomon believes those answers could be coming sooner than that. Kelsey Jean-Baptiste, WFXR News.
Now, WFXR News has been closely following this developing story over the past 24 hours. Our crews were among the first on scene, and we've been there every step of the way since. We have a crew heading back down to the site in the morning to bring you the very latest on Good Day Virginia. And as always, you can stay up to date when we're not on air at WFXRTV.com.